If we don't have a sense of purpose, then you're doing the thing you're doing just for the sake of doing it. I'm making money just for the sake of money. I'm turning this wrench just for the sake of turning this wrench. And when we do things that contribute to something else, contribute to something bigger, it gives our lives and our work meaning. And when we have a sense of meaning, when we have a sense of purpose, it does many, many things to us. It builds our self-confidence. It makes us better decision makers. It makes us better in relationships. And at the end of the day, it makes us enjoy our lives and find fulfillment in our work. And I think so often, a lot of people don't think about it this way. They don't think about what's the purpose of all of this. We usually default to, I got to pay my bills. That's a function because I was told to do it, because everybody has to work, or because I want to make this company the biggest or the best. To what end? To what value? And so to truly understand purpose, I think, like I said, it sort of just has positive effects all over the place.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with the Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because in my first business, I quit on my business partner. I struggled to keep going. I was making $300 a month and felt like a complete failure. And the thing that saved me, that pulled me up, was studying the stories of famous entrepreneurs. I got the motivation from them. I also got the strategies of what to do next so that I can go off and achieve my dreams. And quite honestly, I still need the stories today myself to continue my motivation to take it to the next level. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Simon Sinek, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, adopt an optimist mindset.
What is that optimist mindset means?
So I think there's a great misunderstanding of what optimism and what an optimist is. I think people think optimism and blind positivity are the same thing, and they're not. Blind positivity, everything's good, everything's fine, everything's good, which a lot of leaders think they have to do. They think they have to be positive all the time to keep their team motivated, inspired. And the reality is it actually backfires, because when we're going through stress, and we see our leader always positive, we think there's something wrong with us. It actually backfires. Optimism is different. Optimism is not naive. Optimism is very realistic. Optimism is the undying belief that the future is bright. And we can be in a dark tunnel and say, these are hard times. And I do not know how long we will be here. And I do not know how far away that light is, but I know that if we work together, we will come out of this better than we went in. Optimism, again, is about the future, but it is absolutely accepting of difficulty and stress in the current day.
Rule number 3 is focus on improvement.
Talk about competition a little bit, because my God, we're hyper focused on beating people, on being right, on competition. I'm afraid of it. I need to work harder. Talk about that a little bit, how we can shift that culture.
So my life and my work has been very much influenced by a philosopher named Dr. James Carse, who in the mid-1980s defined these two types of games: finite games and infinite games. A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and an agreed upon objective. Football, baseball. If there's a winner, necessarily there have to be losers. And there's always a beginning, a middle, and end to a finite game. Then you have infinite games. Infinite games are defined as known and unknown players, which means you don't necessarily know who all the other players are, and new players can join at any time. The rules are changeable, which means every player can play however they want. And the objective is to perpetuate the game, to stay in the game as long as possible. So we're players in infinite games every day of our lives, whether we know it or not. You can't win education. You can come in first for the finite amount of time you're at school, where we agree upon the time frames, the school year, and the metrics, grades. But nobody wins education, nobody wins learning, nobody wins healthcare, nobody wins global politics, and nobody wins business. But when you hear the language of so many people, they talk about being number one, being the best, and beating their competition. Based on what? Based upon what agreed upon objectives, metrics, or timeframes? And this is a problem, because when we play with a finite mindset in an infinite game, and we play to win in a game that has no finish line, there are some very predictable and consistent outcomes. The big ones are the decline of trust, the decline of cooperation, the decline of innovation. And when people become obsessed with beating their competitors in a game where there is actually no winner, right? There's no winning career. You can get a promotion, sure, but there's no winning career, and there's no winning in business. And so beating your competition is actually based on what? Based on revenues, profit, Based on what? 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, the lifespan of the company? Like what? It's all nonsense. It's all made up. And so we spend so much time reacting to what another player has done rather than focusing on how we can improve. And so one of the things that I've learned is to completely eliminate this idea of having competitors, which is I have no competitors in my space, none. There are other players who do what I do. And some of those players do some of the things that I do better than me. And those players are my worthy rivals. And it is better to respect and study your worthy rivals because their strengths reveal to you your weaknesses. And if you can have your weaknesses revealed to you, that means you can work on your weaknesses. Because ultimately, as individuals or as organizations, we're in a state of constant improvement. That's all we're trying to do, is be better today than we were yesterday, be better tomorrow than we were today. That's all this game is, whether it's your life, your relationships, your business, whatever it is, it's a game of constant improvement. And so to obsess about beating your competition actually takes us away from constant improvement because it might make us do something short-term, or it might make us do something expedient because it gives us a short-term leg up, or use cheaper ingredients, or trick somebody, or, because it can drive revenues. And all that does is weaken our own organization. That's all it does. That's all it does. And so I don't think of competitors at all. I think of worthy rivals. And by the way, worthy rivals can change. I get to pick who they are, and I get to pick the reasons that they're my worthy rivals. And I'm in a state of constant improvement thanks to them. And sometimes it's something small and sometimes it's something big. But I'm grateful to all those who do similar things to me because it makes me a better player.
Rule number 4 is build a trusting team.
We have to have trusting teams. I was on a business trip in Las Vegas, and they put me up at the Four Seasons, beautiful hotel. And one of the reasons it's a beautiful hotel is not simply because of the fancy bed. Any hotel can buy a fancy bed. It's because of the people who work there. That when they say hello to you, you get the distinct sense that they wanted to say hello, not that they were told to say hello. We're highly attuned social animals. We can tell the difference. They happen to have a coffee bar in the lobby. And so one afternoon, I went to buy myself a cup of coffee, and the barista working that day was a young man named Noah. Noah was funny. He was engaging. I enjoyed buying a cup of coffee from him. I stood there for far too long buying a cup of coffee just because I enjoyed talking to Noah. So as is my nature, I asked Noah, "Do you like your job?" And without skipping a beat, Noah says to me, "I love my job." Now, in my line of business, that's significant. Like is rational. I like the people, I like the challenge, I get paid well, I like my job. Love is emotional. It demonstrates an emotional connection to whatever we're doing. Do you love your wife? I like her a lot. It's a different standard, right? Noah said, "I love my job." So immediately, I'm interested. So I follow up. I said to Noah, "Tell me specifically what the Four Seasons is doing that you would say to me, you love your job." And again, without skipping a beat, Noah said that throughout the day, managers will walk past him and ask him how he's doing. Ask him if there's anything that he needs to do his job better. Not just his manager, any manager. And then he said, "I also work for a different hotel. And there, the managers walk past me and catch me if I'm doing something wrong. There, they're always overbearing and trying to make sure that I make my numbers." He says, "There, I just like to get through the day, keep my head below the radar, and just collect my paycheck." He said, "Only at the Four Seasons do I feel I can be myself." This is the exact same human being, and yet the level of performance will be completely different, not because of him, but because of the leadership environment in which he's working. I get this question all the time. "Simon, how do we get the most out of our people?" They're not a towel that we wring them to see how much we can get out of them. The question is flawed. The correct question is, what environment do I have to create? What do I have to do to help my people work at their natural best? That's called leadership. And when we can create a trusting team, teams in which people feel trusted and trusting, what will happen is it makes them feel safe enough to raise their hand and say, "I made a mistake," or "I'm having trouble at home and it's affecting my work," Or you've promoted me to a position that I don't know what I'm doing and I need more training. Or I need help, or I'm scared. If we do not have trusting teams, what we have is a group of people who show up to work every single day lying, hiding, and faking. They hide all of the mistakes for fear of getting in trouble. They won't admit that they don't know what they're doing for fear that they'll be humiliated. They're certainly not going to say that they're scared or that they need help for fear that it will somehow reduce their value inside the organization. And eventually, things will compound and break.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Rule number 5 is be a risk taker.
You can't incentivize results. Like, you can't do that. You can only incentivize the behavior that will achieve a certain result. And if it's only about the short term, then guess what? You're going to drive a behavior that drives short term. And so in your case, what are the behaviors that you're recognizing and rewarding? And so if people are getting bonused only for hitting numbers, and they're not getting bonused for how they do business, then you're going to incentivize a certain behavior. So I'll give you an example. So young in my career, I worked at an ad agency, and I was the junior dog's buddy to the junior dog's buddy. And it was traditional for a big new business pitch that the senior folks would run the pitch. Well, it happened to be around Christmas time, and all the senior folks went on vacation. And so me and one other junior person who were left behind because we didn't go on vacation were told to prepare the war room, which basically means take a conference room and fill it up with all the research. Well, that took a few hours, right? But we still had a week. And so she and I decided to write the whole pitch. We went through all the research and we came up with a strategy and we wrote the pitch. All the senior leaders came back, we presented our work, and they actually used our strategy in this new business pitch. And we lost the pitch, we didn't win. And I got a huge promotion. My boss actually moved me up 2 levels inside the company because he wasn't rewarding my performance, he was awarding and rewarding my initiative. By giving me a promotion for taking the risk to do the extra work, guess what I did after that? Took more risks and did more work, even if it meant winning or losing didn't become the primary factor for me. It was the initiative but that wasn't because of me and my innate anything. That's because that's the behavior my boss wanted from me. And so I think what happens when we get big is we do become too obsessed with the result, and we don't consider the behavior. There are some brilliant people making big decisions who may have missed the number or may have missed the goal, but we gave them nothing, which sends a subconscious message to the rest of the company, which is, if you hit your numbers, you'll do well here. If you don't hit your numbers, we don't care how you do it, as long as, so you get the point. So I think it happens, big companies need to go back and reevaluate how they recognize and reward. And if you want risk taking, then recognize the people taking risks, even when they fail.
Rule number 6 is embrace uncertainty.
When COVID first showed up, I loved listening to the commentaries. The number of people who said, in these uncertain times. And I would always giggle to myself because all times are uncertain. There's never been a time in history that wasn't uncertain. All that happened was something that we didn't expect happened suddenly that reminded us, that things are uncertain. Every stock market crash, nobody knew that it was going to happen tomorrow. It's always uncertain. And this is where an infinite mindset can be very valuable. Because players who play with a finite mindset fear uncertainty and work hard to avoid surprise, which is why they like short time frames. We like the quarter or at most the year. Don't talk to me about 3 years or 5 years. That freaks me out. And I like everything to go according to plan and be very predictable. And so when something unexpected happens, panic is their normal reaction, right? When we learn to embrace an infinite mindset, we actually see opportunity in surprise and we embrace uncertainty. So when something unexpected happens, it's still stressful, but when something unexpected happens, we go, oh, I wonder what we can do with this. This is exciting. Hey, team, come here. Let's talk about how do we work in this environment. And I saw it happen during COVID. It was so easy to see which companies were playing with a finite mindset and which were playing with an infinite mindset, because the finite-minded companies panicked and went into survival mode, and everything was about themselves. How are we going to survive? How are we going to make money? Right? Whereas the ones with the infinite mindset went, okay, opportunity here. What if we were to start our company from scratch today? How would we do things? Like, what if we didn't exist yesterday and today was the first day of work? How would we do things? Still very stressful, but very exciting. And instead of putting themselves at the center, they were more preoccupied with the customer. People still want what we have. How do we get it to them? As opposed to how can we make money? And so I could tell the difference immediately. And so the more we learn to embrace an infinite mindset, uncertainty becomes a joy, becomes an opportunity for creativity. And so that's one of the huge benefits.
Rule number 7 is be open to feedback.
Is there practical things we can do to create a culture of seeking out that feedback and creating a safe space?
Well, the simple answer is, of course. There's no such thing as a single silver bullet. It's a combination of things. It's like, what's the one thing I can do to have a happy relationship? Well, I can tell you a important thing, but I can't tell you the important thing. So it's the same. And everybody's a little different, and each culture is a little different. So there's not even a set list I can give, but there's some things that people can choose from. One thing is, one of the ways we create space is how we react, right? If someone gives you feedback and you deny it, well, that's a problem. If somebody gives you hard feedback and you thank them for it, it's a very different environment it creates. So I'll give you two examples, one a lesson, the other one a practical example that someone can use. So I had the opportunity to visit the Army Rangers, Ranger School in particular, and where they make Army Rangers. And one of the troubles they had a bunch of years ago was they had these folks that they called Spotlight Rangers, which was they were really good at their job. Like, they were brilliant at all the tasks that were set to them, strong. The teachers, the instructors, loved them. They stood out. They were great. They were motivated. But as soon as the spotlight was turned off, when the instructor wasn't there and they were back at barracks, they were assholes. And the only people who knew were their friends and colleagues, because the spotlight was turned off. And so the Army Rangers implemented a system of peer review in order to identify Spotlight Rangers. And now, by the way, they started this 40 years ago, which I find incredibly advanced. But to advance through Ranger School, you need to pass 3 tests. You need your instructor to say, yep, you're ready to go to the next level. You need to physically actually perform all the tasks required of you, and you need to pass your peer review. And if you fail any one of those 3, you don't make it to the next level.
Interesting.
And so that becomes an equally weighted component of advancement in the Army Rangers, which is, what kind of team player are you? Which I love. So we implemented a system of 360 review, which was sort of a bit of an amalgamation of things we'd taken from other groups and made our own, where the way it works is you take the group of people you have regular interaction with, and you fill out your top 3 weaknesses, or the places you believe you need to grow the most, with a specific example for each. So top 3 specific weaknesses or places you need to grow the most, and then top 3 specific strengths, or the places you believe, 3 examples of the places you believe you've grown the most. They have to be specific. Not like, oh, I'm a much better timekeeper now. No, you've got to give some specific examples. They're collated and distributed amongst the team, and then you come together as a group, and you take turns reading them. So first you read your own weaknesses, and then the group has the opportunity to add to that list. And here's the best part. We give a little speech before the whole exercise starts that the people who are going to give you this feedback really don't want to. It's really uncomfortable for them. It's going to be,
They would just rather not do this exercise at all. But they're going to do it because they want to see you and help you grow. And so what they're giving you is a gift. And so you have to receive it as a gift, which means you say thank you. You don't have to agree with it. If you don't agree with it, say thank you and just dismiss it. It's fine. But if it has an emotional impact, if it makes you angry or frustrated, it's probably true. Right? And we go around the room and people can add to this list of these weaknesses. In any way, there's no format, they can do it in any way they want. And you sit there and you look them in the eye and you genuinely say, thank you. You're not allowed to say a word except thank you. Then you do your strengths and you read your strengths, and anyone can add to the list. And just as you discovered you have blind spots you didn't know you have, you discover that you have strengths that you didn't know you had, that you're having a positive impact in the lives of others that you didn't know you were. And it's a magical experience. There's usually tears at some point because it's powerful and it's a safe environment.
Rule number 8 is live an infinite life.
What does it mean to live an infinite life? Clearly, our lives are finite. We're born, we die. But life is infinite. We come, we go, and the game continues with us or without us. Which means every single one of us has the choice of how we choose to live our lives, how we choose to lead our organizations. We can lead with a finite mindset, try and make more money than our friends, try and get ahead faster than everybody else, try and achieve more power than anybody else, and when we die, we take none of it with us. But the choice to live an infinite life means we choose to build an organization that will be better off because we work there. We will leave it in better shape than we found it. It means to be the kind of friend and leader to others that they will be better because we were in their lives. It means we will literally live on beyond ourselves. It's just a choice whether we choose to live with an infinite mindset or a finite mindset.
Rule number 9 is find your passion.
Just walk me through, because I'm actually very curious about you before you. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm really kind of curious about. So you were like disgruntled with your career a little bit, right?
I wouldn't say disgruntled. I'd fallen out of love. Yeah.
Okay.
I had no passion for my career.
Okay.
And this was a chosen career. Like, I started my own business in a category, in a profession that I thought I wanted to spend the rest of my life in.
Consulting.
Marketing.
Oh, okay. I thought it was.
You know? And to wake up one morning with a superficially good life. I owned my own business. We had amazing clients. We did really good work. Our clients liked us and didn't want to do it anymore.
Right.
It's kind of distressing because, as I said where we started, so many of us intertwine our identities with our work. And if I don't like my work, then who am I?
Right.
And so I went through that, which was incredibly unfun. And it was the discovery of this little idea that I called the Golden Circle, where we all know what we do. Some of us know how we do it, but very few of us know why we do what we do. And I realized I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. And it was that crisis that was designed to do nothing more than help me find my own passion, to get back my mojo, that put me in a path that was unexpected. My entire career is an accident.
Amazing.
I am living proof that you don't have to have a plan.
Right. Exactly. And it worked out for you, right?
You have to have a vision. You have to have a vector. You have to have a direction, but you definitely don't need to know the individual steps.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is serve others.
The part of the maturation of your work is, and it's pretty clear, the mission of, helping people rather than always, the overconsumption of self-help, right? So the framework of your own company, just give me a second on that and how you're looking to move that needle.
Yeah, so there's an entire section in the bookshop called self-help, but there's no section of the bookshop called help others. And I think that's the thing we're missing. I think since the 1970s, when the self-help industry began, it's done very well for itself. And the question is it has taught us a skill, but it's also teaching us to be preoccupied with ourselves. And I think as social animals, one of the things we've forgotten is we also need to learn to help each other. And if you look at some of the challenges that plague us today, whether it's disengagement at work or loneliness at home or struggle to find the job we love or find the relationship that we love, all of those things, the antidote to all of those things is another human being. And our ability to help somebody else find the thing that they're looking for actually gives us the thing we're looking for. And I'm living proof of that. It's when I learned the value of service, everything that I wanted to feel, everything that I wanted to achieve started to fall in place only when I learned to serve others first. Millennials were difficult, but this younger generation, they're more activist, which when it's like climate change, we love it. But like when you're like the intern and you're sending an email to the CEO going, I don't think that it's like there's other ways to do that. It starts with empathy. And we have to understand it's for better or for worse, the changing nature of what work has become in our lives. If you go back a bunch of decades, it used to be that you got your sense of purpose from church, you got your sense of community from bowling league, you knew your neighbors, you barbecued with them on the weekends, and work, I was loyal to work and work was loyal to me. At some point I'd get a gold watch. Aside, there's an entire generation that when I talk about the gold watch, they have no idea what I'm talking about, right? That's how much the world has changed. And work was simply a place that I made a living to pay my bills. But I still enjoyed it was still loyalty. Over the course of time, church attendance is down, bowling clubs don't exist anymore, we don't talk to our neighbors, we become very insular, and what's happened is all of that pressure is now being put on the office. I now expect my company to be the place where I get my purpose, the place I get my friendships, the place I get my community, the place I get my social life. Now we've also added the place you have to agree with all of my politics, right? That's a new one. And it's even now, especially during COVID, it's gone up even higher, especially for this young group, where you also have to be my therapists, my therapy. I'm going to bring all of my problems to work. And where the idea of emotional professionalism seems to have gone away. Where you actually see people sitting in meetings like this, and you're like, what's going on? Having a bad day, right? That's emotionally unprofessional, right? I want you to bring your emotions to work. I want you to bring your whole self to work. But for the same reason that we exercise emotional professionalism in other aspects of our lives, we also do it at work. So one of the struggles of this young generation is they are not equipped on how to deal with stress. They're just less equipped than previous generations for various reasons, including social media, internet, and parenting and all the rest of it. There's many reasons for it, but they're really not good at dealing with stress. They're really bad at dealing with confrontation. They're so confrontation avoidant that they would rather ghost someone than break up with them after dating them for 6 months, right? That they would rather quit their job than ask their boss for a raise. And usually in spectacular fashion, like, you don't value me, you don't pay me enough, you're like, if you just asked, I would have given you a raise, and we love you. But they quit because they're just afraid of the conversation. So they're very intimidated by confrontation, they're ill-equipped to deal with stress, there's an emotional immaturity, emotional unprofessionalism, right? And it's not a good thing or a bad thing, it just is. And so us having empathy and understanding that is important. And so it raises the question, how are they dealing with their stress? Not well. And so there's a new phenomenon that I'm seeing happening in a lot of offices where, especially young people, are finding the one or two the empaths on the team, and they're going to them with all of their problems. And it's not the traditional, I hate my boss, I hate my job. Venting about work is fine, I have no issue with that. But it's, I hate my mom, I don't know what I want to do with my life, when am I going to leave my house, my boyfriend's not working out, my girlfriend's not working out, like every problem in my life on this one or two people at work. And we've had it happen on our team. We had 3 people quit. And I got a little team. I got 3 people who quit because they said they were burnt out. And I was like, I know how much work you do. What do you mean you're burnt out? So I'm like, do you have another job on the side? How can you be burnt out? What I discovered is they were the empaths on the team, and everybody was calling them to unload. They were burnt out because they were taking on everybody's stress, and they were exhausted. They couldn't take it anymore, and they just quit.
And when I talked about this publicly, I had a 23-year-old come up to me in one of the companies and said, I do that. And so we have to recognize they are struggling in a changing, chaotic, crazy world right now where there's so much uncertainty in this world. Like the world is always uncertain, but my God, it's war and the country's at each other's throat, and there's challenge and the global warming, and it's just insane, these poor kids. And they have no outlet. They don't know how to deal with it. So it's a challenge for all of us, is how do we hold space for them? And the problem is they don't even recognize when we're doing the right thing for them. That's the hardest part. A lot of anger, but the problem is it's gonna take a bit. Like, we're in a period of extreme flux, and it's not gonna settle for a little bit. It's gonna be a very bumpy road for the next few years. There's no right answer. And no good deed will go unpunished.
The human brain cannot comprehend the negative. It is incapable. Yes, it's true. I'll give you an example.
I believe you.
Okay? No, I'll give you an example. You don't have to believe me. I'll prove it. Okay? The human brain cannot comprehend the negative. You ready? Don't think of an elephant. Oh. Yeah, I know. You can't tell the human brain not to do something, right? And so what happens is we very often reinforce things when we put things in the negative, right? I can't get apart, right? Or I can't do this, versus I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this. Right? And it's such a huge thing to convert things into the affirmative. You're supposed to do it with children as well. We're supposed to say, instead of saying to children, don't eat on the couch, we're supposed to say, eat at the table. Right? We tell people what we want them to do, not what we don't want to do. Pilots know this, right? It is well known in the pilot community that when you tell a pilot, don't hit the obstacle, they'll hit the obstacle. Because what they're doing is focusing on the obstacle. Skiers know this. If you ever seen skiers go through trees, do you know how they do that? It's very easy. It's actually surprisingly easy. If you go through trees on skis and you go, don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree, guess what you're watching? You're only looking at trees. All you're doing is seeing trees. You don't understand how anyone can ski with all these trees, right? As opposed to follow the snow, follow the path, follow the path. The only thing you see is the path. Skiers know this. If you say don't hit a tree, you'll hit a tree. You won't be able to find a path because all you see is millions of trees. If you say only follow the path, you actually don't see any trees. There's actually very sparse trees. There's plenty of path, there's plenty of snow. It's the same thing for you. If you focus on the obstacles, all you will see is obstacles. If you focus on the path through the trees, all you will see is path through the trees. It's your choice how you choose to perceive your own career. It's literally perspective. A US Marine told me the first criterion for being a leader is you have to want to be one. And if you look at the way the Marines select their leaders, select their officers, it's different than with their enlisted corps. So if you enlist in the Marine Corps, you go to Paris Island in the east, or you go to San Diego in the west to boot camp, and they will make you into a Marine. Yeah. That's what it says. We make Marines. Yeah. And if you change your mind, you're going to be in the Marine Corps, whether you like it or not. Yeah. There is no changing your mind. Yeah. Once you sign on the dotted line, you're in. Yeah. In the officer corps, it's different. If you want to be an officer in the Marine Corps, you go to OCS in Quantico, Virginia, and it's a 10-week training, and you only have to stay in the first 4 weeks. For the next 6 weeks, you can drop out at any time for any reason. Yeah. And the reason is because if you don't want to be a leader, they don't want you. Yeah. They give you the choice. Leadership to me is like being a parent. Everybody has the capacity to be a parent. Doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent and everybody should be a parent. Right. Leadership is the same. Everybody has the capacity. Yeah. Doesn't mean everybody wants it, and doesn't mean everybody should. Yeah. It comes at great personal sacrifice. It means you have to constantly worry about other people, like being a parent. Yeah. You have to love them whether you chose them or not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Your team. And there are skills to being a parent. And everyone who's ever had a child starts reading books when they find out that they're pregnant for the first time. You know, they start asking their friends, they start asking their parents for advice, and it's constant. You know, whether the kid's struggling at school or struggling at home or having a good time. It's all the, you know, it's like I hate hanging out with my sister and my brother-in-law when they're with their other friends who have families, because all they talk about is kids.
Yeah. Right.
Well, leadership's the same.
Yeah.
Leadership's the same. You know, the great leaders that I know are all students of leadership. They're obsessed.
Yeah.
They're constantly talking about it. They're reading books about it. They're watching talks about it. They're reading articles about it. They get together. It's the topic of conversation.
Sure.
And so, you know, if you want to learn the skill set, I mean, number one, you have to want to do it, and B, you're going to have to do some work.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes effort. This is one of the most common mistakes I see of visionary founding leaders, whether it's Sam Walton or Steve Jobs. Like, we know who these people are, Richard Branson, we know who these people are, Elon Musk, right? And one of the biggest mistakes they all make is they think that everyone in the company is as clear on their vision as they are. Because it's clear to them, they just assume it's clear to everyone. And they don't think they need to go through the process of putting that just cause in terms that have nothing to do with the company or themselves. And the work that they fail to do in acculturating the vision outside of them, because they have such outsized influence over the course of the organization. And we talked about courage before. They're the ones who say no to the pressures of Wall Street, for example. Unfortunately, so many of them replace themselves with operators. A visionary replaces himself with an operator. Now, inherently, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Operators can absolutely do a visionary job, but they have to know that it's a different job. And the skill set that they've developed over a 20 or 30-year career, being a CFO or COO, getting really good at it, actually has to change. And so many of these folks replace themselves with their CFO or their COO. And when asked, why did you choose that person? They all say the same thing. I trust them more than anybody. True. They know more about the workings of this company than I do. True. I couldn't do it without them. True. Except for the fact that it's a different skill set. One is up and out, the other one is down and in. And again, yes, a CFO or CEO could take over that CEO role, but have to understand that up and out is now their job, that being in the weeds and in the details and worrying about the short term is no longer their job. And I think we actually do ourselves a disservice in business by thinking of CFOs or CEOs as number two in the company. You know, that many of them think they're in line for the big job. And it's 1A. It's a partnership. It's visionary and operator it's the push me, pull you. It's the tension of those two skill sets and those two ways of operating, up and out and down and in, that, very, very long term to shorter term, that make an organization highly, highly, highly functional. And so one of the things we have to do is you want a visionary person and a visionary job. You want an operator and an operator job. You want to do the hard work of extracting that why, that purpose from that founder leader in terms that are compelling and resonant with everyone else. And you want to make sure that your values are built in and built into your incentive structure, not just performance, but your values as well, so that the organization is equipped to survive that founder leader for a century if necessary or more.
I had 2 fish bowls in my room, and we can calculate, we know the average lifespan, we know our average lifespan, it's, whatever the number is, 78 or whatever it is. So you can actually easily calculate the number of months, weeks, or days that you statistically have left on this planet, right? And so I bought a bag of marbles, and 1 marble represented each week that I have left on the planet. And I filled up the exact number, based on the statistics, in 1 fishbowl. And at the end, it's more inspiring than doomsday. It's just statistics. Yeah, no. But at the end of every week, I would ask myself, I actually got it down to the day, but at the end of every week, I'd say, was this a week worth living? Did I do something to inspire someone? And it's my own standard. And if the answer is yes, I move it to the other fishbowl. If the answer is no, I throw away the marble because I wasted it, right? And that's why I love the word inspire. I believe it is a standard to live by, and inspiration is how we make other people feel. It's not, did you do something? I did something good today. I gave money to charity. That's not what it is. It's how did I make someone feel, and did they feel that their life is even better, even for 5 minutes, because of their interaction with me, right? And then genuine care, I think, is the second part of it, right?
Inspire the world to lead with genuine heart.
Right, with genuine heart. And again, I think that sets you up for values. And it's proprietary. I've never heard anybody talk about people talk about innovation and, integrity. Like, those are generic words. But genuine heart is something you can own. And so how do you amplify genuine heart? What are the standards of leading with genuine heart? What does it mean to lead with genuine heart? What are the values that mean that? Are you giving out a genuine heart award, to the person in each property who exemplifies? And by the way to do that is to ask their teammates to vote for them, not come from leadership. Like, who inspires us to lead with genuine heart to the degree that we want to be more like our own colleague? Because a peer review is actually more powerful than a review from up on high. Because really we're all working for one person's approval, where a peer review is, my team loves me, and we're not angry when somebody wins that award. I deserve that.
Because I voted for him.
Because I voted for him, right. And it sets a standard for the rest of the team. So I think peer review, where we allow our own people to choose who within our group, who within our team, has inspired us to lead with genuine heart. And the irony is, they may not be your best individual performer, but they're probably your best natural leaders. It doesn't necessarily always line up with performance. We, like many, made most of our money from in-person and live events and workshops, and of course that instantaneously disappeared. And so we, like many, were forced to pivot. And we took advantage of online learning, but we wanted to do it consistent with our own values. We did live classes because we wanted to retain some sort of human connection as opposed to just on-demand classes. We called up people who we knew, whose work we admired, and we said, "You're struggling too. Why don't you come and share your genius on our platform?" And it became a very cooperative thing. But there's a few tactics that I learned to get from A to B that were really helpful, that I never would have done if I didn't have that extreme pressure. So one of the things we did is we shared with the team the vision, which we had, and then we said to the whole team, we can't do this alone. This is literally a team effort. And so what I want 15 ideas from each person in the next 48 hours about how we can deliver on that vision. And the team freaked out. 15 ideas in 48 hours? And if they wanted to work in teams, I was fine with that. And the reason for that is the pressure, if I gave them 3 weeks, well, they would have all done the work the 48 hours before anyway. So, so that was academic. But the important thing was, the reason for 15 ideas is because if I only asked for 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, those would be the same ideas I came up with. And it's the ideas that 11, 12, and 13 that were the brilliant ones. And when we came together to report out, we did it in sort of a unique way. I sort of gave this little speech where I said, okay, this is not a competition. This is about contribution. If one person has 6 amazing ideas and you have none, instead of being angry, say thank you, because they just saved your job because they had a great idea. Also, what I learned is that there's a difference between somebody who has an idea and somebody who's good at executing an idea. And the reality is, the most creative people in the team that could come up with the ideas weren't the best at executing them. And the ones that didn't have that many ideas, they were great at executing ideas. So it became really interesting to see who were my creators and who were my executors from that one meeting. And we played Boggle rules. If you've ever played the game Boggle, if somebody else has your word, you just skip over it and move on. I said, if somebody says your idea, don't bother saying, well, I had that idea too. I'm not keeping score, I don't care. Simply move on and tell me something else on your list. And we only let people report out 2 or 3 ideas at a time. That way we could sort of get a flavor. And what ended up happening was people would build on the ideas that they heard. And the set of ideas that we had at the end became our ideas. Nobody could claim them anymore because we'd all sort of tinkered with them. And then we broke them into 3 buckets: green, yellow, and red.
A green idea was an idea we could execute with the money we had, and we could execute it within the week. A yellow idea was an idea that needed a little more resource, probably take a week to a month. And a red idea, no matter how good it was too expensive or take too long, and we just parked it and said, we'll deal with those one day. And then we just took all our green ideas and executed them. So ethical fading is a really amazing and fascinating social phenomenon. Basically what it is when a group of people make unethical decisions believing that they are still consistent with their own ethical framework. In other words, they don't think they've done anything unethical, right? Extreme examples of this would be things like a pharmaceutical company raising the price of an essential drug 500%, 800%, 1,000%, 5,000%. And though it may not be illegal, it's highly, highly unethical, and yet they don't think they've done anything wrong. That's an extreme example, but we see ethical fading happen all across companies all the time, where we do things that we know are good for us, where we might lie to our customers or our clients, for example, or we might lie to each other to get ourselves ahead. These are all demonstrations of ethical fading. The way in which ethical fading happens, as you said, one of the ways is just a ridiculous, unbalanced amount of pressure on short term, which forces us to think about ourselves or only think about that short term goal. And then we can rationalize, well, everyone's doing it. It's what the company wants me to do. How else am I going to get ahead? I have to put food on the table. It's the system. It's, we can rationalize the behavior. Also the slippery slope. We do something a little bit once, it worked. We do it a little more, it works. We do it a little more, it works. And before you know it, you have full-blown ethical fading. And so the way you combat ethical fading, and like I said, I gave you an extreme example of the pharmaceuticals, but we see low-level ethical fading across a lot of companies, unfortunately. And the way you combat it is one, good leadership, where that kind of thing is not tolerated. So for example, it's totally normal for people to have unethical ideas. But the question is, when do they get caught? So in an unhealthy company, that unethical idea is implemented until social pressure or the law intervenes, or there's a scandal, right? And then we say, oh, we're terribly sorry. We're a very good company after you got caught. In a properly ethical company, somebody may raise the idea in a meeting, and everybody in the meeting will go, that's funny, but we would never do that here. That's not us. That's a little bit unethical. And it gets shut down immediately. And again, that's good leadership, because it's the leaders who are promoting people who are ethical, who are highlighting ethical behavior and acting in a way that sets the tone, and they're not putting undue pressure on people to break the rules in order to make the numbers. A lot of leaders, unfortunately, when confronted with toxicity or unethical behavior, they'll shrug their shoulders and say, I know, but the numbers are so good, and they allow it to happen. And so one of the primary ways in which you beat ethical fading, quite frankly, is good leadership. But the others are just cause, trusting teams. All of these things contribute to operating in a highly ethical way. Leaders need to model behavior, like parents need to model behavior. So for example, I'll give you a company says, we believe in integrity and always telling the truth. And then the phone rings and, an assistant picks up the phone and the executive says, tell him I'm not in. Well, congratulations, you've just sanctioned lying, and so it's one thing to write it on the wall, it's another thing to actually practice the thing that's written on the wall. So modeling the behavior is absolutely essential, because your actions will speak much louder than your words. And the stories do matter. Stories are much more powerful than statistics. What did Stalin say? I'm quoting Stalin. The death of one man is the death of one man is a tragedy. The death of a million is a statistic. Interesting. I think he said it the other way around. The death of a million men is a statistic. The one of them is a tragedy. And I'll give you a real life example, just to put it into. So let's say something like, okay, so COVID ravaged the world.
Some would argue expectedly, some would argue unexpectedly, but it happened. And over the course of just over a year, 600,000 people in the United States alone have lost their lives. Many women, children and fathers and mothers and families destroyed by this horrible virus. Okay, that's true, right? Here's story number 2. I know this young woman who lives in Southern California. Her name is Cami Yoder. Cami was driving home from work one day, and she turned the corner and came upon a car accident that had just happened. The ambulance hadn't arrived yet. A 17-year-old driver accidentally hit an 18-year-old pedestrian with her car. The girl was lying on the street, one of her legs at an uncomfortable angle, a 90-degree angle. Cami pulled over her car, got out. Thank goodness she actually knows basic first aid. She performed CPR on the young girl to keep her alive until the paramedics arrived. Eventually the paramedics came, they took over from Cami, and they took the girl to the hospital. A couple of days later, Cami was curious what had happened to her, and she went on the blotter, she went online and found out that the young girl had actually died. Which was more powerful to you, the death of 600,000 people or the death of one young girl in California?
The second.
And the second one gave you goosebumps, the first one didn't. And that's the point, which is, what's the difference between 500,000 people dead or 600,000 people to 650,000 people dead? It emotionally moves us zero. But when you tell the story of a person who is an example of what happens, if we tell the story of one death of COVID and how it's affected that family, the emotional impact is vastly more powerful than simply relaying statistics and numbers. And so yes, I do believe that part of being a good leader is not just the intent, but part of good leadership is the ability to communicate. Those things I think are inextricably linked. And learning how to tell a story, quite frankly, that captures the value of your work. Because people can relay those stories much easier than they can relay or remember the statistics.
Throughout the organization.
Throughout the organization.
Story gets passed down,
Correct.
sometimes generations.
Generationally. And great organizations, like great cultures, have myth. You know, there's stories that have been passed down generations in nations about the founding.
Yeah.
You know, the Marine Corps celebrates their birthday every year. There's debate whether that's actually even their birthday or not. It doesn't even matter. Right? And it becomes part of the culture. These stories become ingrained. You know, George Washington and the cherry tree. Yeah, was it a cherry tree? Yeah. They become ingrained in the fabric of the nation. So too do they become ingrained in the fabric of the company. And like religion, like anything, it's the stories that capture the morals and values much better than just writing them on the wall.
So my why is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them. So together, each of us can change our world for the better. And it's why I wake up every morning, every day. It is the greatest compliment someone can pay me when they say to me, that was inspiring, or you were inspiring. Like, that feeds me, you know? And the interesting thing about a why is because it is objective. A why is the sum total of how we were raised. It's born out of the patterns and the lessons we learn from our parents, from our teachers when we're young. And our why is fully formed by the time we're in our mid to late teens. And you only have one why for the rest of your life. It doesn't change. You are who you are based on how you were raised. Now, you may not be acting as your true self. You know, people say that to us all the time. You know, it's like, I don't know who you are anymore, you know? But when you are at your natural best, your why is front and center. But we're not always acting at our natural best. And sometimes we make decisions out of selfishness. We take the job that pays us, that offers us the most money, and turn down the one to work for somebody who would probably be a better mentor. You know, we do these things all the time. And so, you know, can you tweak the words of your why? Of course. You know, but that's semantics. Can we find better ways to bring a why to life? Yes, that's the evolution. But the why itself is fixed.
Can you, off the top of your head, can you think of, you compared, you know, the finite mindset to some things with law enforcement.
Sure.
As far as infinite, can you think of anything off the top of your head where you could relate that specifically to what we do and what that might look like?
Anybody who's wearing a uniform here knows this because you've had this experience in your career, right?
which is treating someone with dignity. Treating someone with dignity has nothing to do whether they are guilty or innocent, right? That everybody here knows that when you treat somebody with dignity, the way they respond to you, even if they've committed a crime and they're sitting there in handcuffs, is very, very different than when we don't treat them with dignity. So for example, treating someone with dignity may look like somebody gets pulled over for expired tags or something and they've got a warrant, I don't know, and you have to tow their car, right? So you call a tow truck, and now somebody who's maybe financially struggling, you've just put at least $300 more that they have to deal with. Or treating them with dignity is like, hey, I gotta tow your car. Before I call a tow truck, do you want to call somebody, you want to call a family member or something who can come here and get your car? That'll save you $300, you know, and help you out, you know? And if you can't call somebody, I'm gonna have to tow it, right? That's treating someone with dignity. And everybody here knows that when you treat somebody with dignity, sometimes you're taking them to jail and they thank you. And the way in which people respond to the uniform, if treated with dignity, has nothing to do with breaking the law or being put in handcuffs. It's human being to human being. And so I think in a law enforcement, when law enforcement is conducted in a policing organization, you're thinking about the longevity of the value of the uniform. You're thinking about the relationship of those who wear the uniform in public, how much the public is willing to help us if a crime is committed, and we go to the public and say, can you help us? And their willingness. Those things are determined right now on a day-to-day basis, right? And you asked before about building of trust, right? There's no big thing you can do that builds trust. Trust is built up with lots and lots and lots of tiny little innocuous little things. Think of it like your own relationship. Like, you know, have you ever been in love? The person who fell in love with you, there wasn't like, I bought you flowers on Valentine's Day, now you love me, right? That's not how it works. It's like, you know, I went to the fridge to get myself a drink and I got you one too without you asking. I woke up in the morning and I said good morning to you before I checked my phone. There was a game on and you said, honey, can I talk to you? And I paused the game and said, what's on your mind? Right? I'm being idealistic. I mean, my point is no one of those things made someone fall in love or trust you, but it's the combination and accumulation of all those tiny little individually innocuous things that we say, I believe you and I trust you. Now imagine an entire organization where we're just trying to do our job, we just have to enforce the law, we just have to do these things, these are the rules, this is how we do it. But the manner in which we conduct ourselves, each one innocuous unto itself, over the course of time, builds tremendous trust with an organization and the community, so that when you need to pull from that trust bank, when you need to make a withdrawal, that's it, right? Because something's gone really horribly wrong, and maybe there was somebody who acted illegally within the department, that you get to say to the community, we screwed up and I need your help to be patient. They go, you're good, you're good. But that trust is earned. I don't think you can motivate the unmotivated. I don't think you could motivate people. People either are motivated or unmotivated. I think you can inspire people. And you know, you can motivate people with sticks and carrots, you know, offer them bounty or threaten punishment, and you'll get behavior that you want. Is there loyalty? Is there love? Absolutely not. Usually, when people are unmotivated, it's not necessarily them. It might be the situation they're in. Maybe they don't belong in the culture. Maybe they feel unseen or unheard. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're unprepared. So we have to, you know, when somebody's unmotivated, let's not label them as unmotivated first. What are the 20 other things that it could also be? Let's start there. Now, are there some people in the world who are unmotivated? Absolutely. You hired them, which means you bear some responsibility if it's time to transition them, to help them find another place where they're going to be a better fit. We can't yell at them and call them stupid and unmotivated and push them out the door. We have to bear some of the responsibility. We hired them. And if we made a mistake and hired somebody who's a bad cultural fit, then we have to take care of them and help them transition to somewhere where they're going to be a better fit. I think that you know, if we only focus on motivating people, and that's a factor, then you're only going to get very finite thinking. An excessive amount of motivating things, like hit this number, get this bonus, you'll get a motivated employee pool that doesn't care about each other, might stab each other in the back, and eventually will take a better job somewhere else. We have to inspire people. We have to give them that sense of cause and vision that their work is worth more. We have to make them feel like they matter and feel like they're seen and heard and understood. And what ends up happening is those people are not only more motivated and inspired, but if they're offered a better, higher paying job somewhere else, they turn it down because it's not just about the bonuses and the money. It's because they would rather be here with these wonderful people. You can pick your own worthy rivals. You can pick any company for any reason and say they're better than us. You know, what can we learn from them? I'll give you a real life story that really captured this for me, and it's in the book, but I'll tell it to you. I spoke at a education summit for Microsoft, and then a few months later, I was invited to speak at an education summit for Apple. At the Microsoft Summit, this is back in the Steve Ballmer days, in the Microsoft Summit, the vast majority of the presentations by the executives spent most of their time talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Summit, 100% of the presentations were how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One was obsessed with beating their competition, the other one was obsessed with advancing their mission. At the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the Zune when it was a thing. This was Microsoft's response to the iPod. And this little piece of technology, I have to say, was really very, very good. It was quite a good little piece of technology. It didn't work on an Apple, so I couldn't use it. That's a different problem. But it was very good. So at the end of my Apple talk, I was sharing a taxi with an Apple executive, and I couldn't help myself. I just had to stir the pot. And I turned to him, I go, you know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune, and it is so much better than my iPod Touch. And he turned to me and he said, I have no doubt. And the conversation was over. Because he understood, this was an infinite-minded organization, he understood that sometimes your competitor will do something better than you, and sometimes you'll be better than them. There's no such thing as winning or losing. There's only ahead and behind. And where Microsoft was obsessed with beating Apple, Apple was obsessed with outdoing itself. And so the great irony is just a couple years after that, Apple released the iPhone. So where Microsoft was obsessing with how to make a better iPod, Apple was on to the next thing, didn't even care. And that's the whole idea, which is absolutely study and learn from the other players. You see, I don't even call them competitors. The other players in your industry. See what they're doing better. Like I said, it reveals your weaknesses and say, we can do better than ourselves. Grow. Eventually, they no longer become worthy of comparison anymore because you advance yourselves. But the whole idea is Apple was thinking about what they could do next, not how they could beat Microsoft to get more market share for an iPod.
So learn from others and how you can be better.
Absolutely. Like I said, their strengths reveal to you your weaknesses, and that's a gift. Passion is not an input. Passion is an output. Passion, we're all passionate. We're just not all passionate for the same things. And we will feel what we call passion when we are involved in something that is deeply personal to us, that is helping us advance some higher purpose or cause. Then when we go to work, what we experience is passion. But if you make us do something that we feel no personal connection to, that is not us helping advance any kind of bigger ideal, then what we feel is stress. Now, passionate people work many hours, they don't come home, they miss their families, they take business trips, they don't sleep, and yet it feels worth it. People who are stressed go on business trips, they miss their families, they work long hours, they don't sleep, but it doesn't feel worth it. Passion is an output, not an input. Like stress is an output, not an input. So you can't do what you're passionate about. You find something you believe in, and what you will experience is passion. So then it begs the question, how do I find what I believe in, right? I think society, especially our society, and especially for a younger generation, puts overwhelming pressure on us to have a vision. What's your vision? Or find your bliss, or all of these, they're all the same thing, right? And the problem is we're not all visionaries. It's unfair. It's an unfair standard. That's like telling everybody to be creative, but we're not all creative. Or everybody be good at math, but we're not all good at math. We're not all visionaries. Only a small percentage of our population are actually visionary. You don't have to have a vision. You have to find a vision, right? If you hear Martin Luther King say, I have a dream that one day little black children will hold hands on the playground with little white children, you go, that's what I want. You choose to follow Dr. King. When you hear the words of visionaries
And if they appeal to you on some visceral level, they give you goosebumps, they make you excited, they make you want to sacrifice, be a part of it, stand in line to hear them, pay money, whatever it is, follow that, make that your vision. Take it and say, that's my vision too. You can adopt someone else's vision and make it your own. That's what we call a following. Is we have taken the visionary's vision and we have chosen to follow that vision ourselves. We are followers. That's a good thing. There's no difference between the visionary and the follower. We both see ourselves in service to something bigger than ourselves. Whether you are the originator of that idea or not is irrelevant. What it does is fuel passion. What it does is fuel conviction. So we don't have to have a vision, but we do have to find one. And so read books, watch TED Talks, read articles, be in life, watch videos, go out, seek, find, listen to leaders, corporate, political, whoever. And when something resonates with you, even if you don't know why, that then you can adopt. And you can take it upon yourself to use your own talents, your own gifts to help advance whatever that cause is. Right? So I have a cause. I have a crystal clear vision of the world I want to live in. I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning inspired, feel safe at work, and return home fulfilled at the end of the day. The gift that I have committed to help advance that cause is the ability to put some of these ideas into words that other people can relate to. When you do a jigsaw puzzle, the first thing you do is lean the box against the wall. Right? We all have a piece of the puzzle to help build this vision. My piece of the puzzle is I'm the guy that points at the box. But I'm not the guy who builds the business. Because there are other people who are better at that, the entrepreneurs and the business leaders. I want them to embrace the same picture on the box. The people who work for companies who say, I want to work for a company that does that. That's their piece. The one who's a gifted natural leader who cares. We all have at least one friend who, for whatever reason, love us and care us even when we're horrible people. That for some reason they still believe in us and they see the good in us. That's their piece of the puzzle. And so we have to commit our gifts. The reason they call them gifts is because they're forgiving. That's what gifts are. They're for giving away. If you have a gift, it's not something you take, it's something you give. So I think we have to find a vision and commit our gifts to help advance that vision. And the great leaders are the ones that can put that vision into words so clear that we can then recite that vision as if it were our own.
There's a great story told by Nelson Mandela. He was actually born the son of a tribal chief. And he was asked by a journalist, how did you learn to become a great leader? And he said, when I was a boy, I remember two things. I remember going to tribal meetings with my father. And I remember they always sat in a circle and my father was always the last to speak. And if you think he's the most senior person in the room, he's this tribal chief and he was always the last to speak. We're constantly telling people you have to be a better listener. But at the end of the day, we have to speak eventually and when we communicate. But I think the practice of being the last to speak when you're in a meeting, we do this all the time. The senior person comes and goes, okay, this is what I think we should do, but I'm interested in what you have to say. Well, it's too late. You've biased the room. It's over. Or you've made people feel that their opinion doesn't matter. I'm tired of the term soft skills. Hard skills are the skills we need to learn to do our jobs, and human skills are the skills we need to be better human beings. And it's the combination of hard skills and human skills that make us very good. And listening is one of those. So I think coming into a meeting, stating a problem, not giving an opinion, and literally be the last to speak, not only do you make people feel like their opinions matter, but you get the benefit of new ideas. You can still make the same decision you wanted to make at the beginning, but you get all that additional benefit. So practice being the last to speak. That's a great lesson. The infinite game is not the absence of finite games. You can absolutely have arbitrary goals. And remember, most of the financial goals we set, a few people sat in a room and said, what do we want our annual goal to be? And somebody says, let's make it this number. And somebody goes, no, let's make it this number. And that becomes the number, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. In fact, it's necessary. Human beings are very tangibly driven animals. We like counting things. It's actually important. Can you imagine running a marathon without mile markers? It would actually be unnerving. So metrics help us measure speed and distance, which is very, very important. But we have to remember that when we hit a metric or don't hit a metric, the game has not been won or lost. They're markers, right? And that's the important part. So we have to stop thinking about business like a race or a game and start thinking of it like a lifestyle. So for example, I want to be healthy. right? So there are many things I have to do to be healthy. I have to eat right, I have to exercise, I have to get enough sleep, I have to nurse my personal relationships. There's probably 15 or 20 other things. Can't do all of those things well all the time. It's a striving. Same in business. We have product, we have marketing, we have sales, we have leadership. Can't do them all right all the time. It's a striving. But we can set arbitrary goals, like I want to lose X amount of weight by X date, right? And every day I'm going to stand on the scale. Some days I'll feel good and some days I'll feel bad. And when I hit my goal, I'm excited. But the problem is I have to keep exercising for the rest of my life. Like it hasn't ended simply because I hit a goal. And that's important to recognize. But what I find more interesting is what happens if you miss the goal? And the answer is nothing. Nothing happens. In fact, very often, we just miscalculated the time it'll take to achieve it. So if you're doing all the right things and you see the trend data is on path, and you just lose that weight in a month later or 2 months later, okay, you're healthier now, even missing the goal, than you were before. The bad news, where it gets dangerous, is when we're so obsessed with that goal that I'll starve myself and stop drinking water to hit the goal, and I'm actually unhealthy. And companies do that. So the goals are good, and celebrating the wins are great, and there are wins. That's fantastic. But we have to remember that if we miss the goal, the question is, what's the trend data? Like, are we a healthy company? Are we taking care of each other? And I'll just go back a few years ago. Ginny Rometty, IBM missed its numbers. And Ginny Rometty made an internal video, which of course leaked, made an internal video that was sent out to the entire IBM that basically shit all over the sales team, publicly. And I remember talking to somebody at IBM, and I'm like, what's with that video? And they're like, oh, so glad I'm not in sales, right? And basically berated them for missing the numbers. This was the first time IBM had missed its numbers, the first quarter in 69 quarters. And the CEO's response was to berate a team, berate an entire division, right? After 69 quarters, they missed their first one. Guess what happened after that berating of the team, and what happened to the culture, and guess how many times they missed it after that? It continued. In other words, it's fine. It's fine to miss it. It's a game. It's a long game. So I think that's where we get confused, which is we become obsessed with we missed our numbers once, where we're doing fantastic. You know? So I think that's where it's just about keeping things in perspective. That's where the infinite mindset helps. It's just about perspective. So in the mid-1980s, a philosopher and theologian by the name of Dr. James Carse articulated these two types of games, finite games and infinite games. A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and an agreed-upon objective. Football, baseball. If there's a winner, necessarily there have to be losers, and there's always a beginning, middle, and an end, right? Then you have infinite games. Infinite games are defined as known and unknown players, which means you don't necessarily know who all the players are, and new players can join whenever they want. The rules are changeable, which means every player can play however they want, and the objective is to perpetuate the game, to stay in the game as long as possible. Turns out we're players in infinite games every day of our lives, right? There's no such thing as winning global politics. There's no such thing as winning marriage. You can't be number one in your marriage. You can be number two, but you can't be number one, right? There's no such thing as winning education. Nobody wins learning. You can come in first for the finite amount of time you're at school, where we agree upon the time frame and the metrics, grades, but nobody wins education, and nobody wins business. Like when Circuit City went bankrupt, Best Buy didn't win anything, right? But if you listen to the language of so many leaders...
Half the room doesn't know what Circuit City is.
I know, it's sort of, I realize that. It used to be a company that competed with Best Buy. Same thing. Big box store, went in, bought a VCR. You don't know what a VCR is.
Right.
What I love about these definitions is that when we listen to the language of so many leaders, it becomes abundantly clear that they don't know the game they're playing in. The number of leaders who talk about being number one, being the best, or beating their competition, based on what? Based upon what agreed upon metrics, timeframes, or objectives. And this is a problem because when we play with a finite mindset in an infinite game, when we play to win in a game that has no finish line, there's some consistent and predictable outcomes. The big ones are the decline of trust, the decline of cooperation, and the decline of innovation. So now let's translate that to a policing organization, right?
An infinite game is not the absence of finite games. It is the context within which finite games exist. Clearly, you are engaged in finite things every day of your career. You have a project that you need to complete. There's a beginning, middle, and end. If someone has committed a crime, you want to try and catch that person. There is a known objective. There's a beginning, middle, and end. There's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, right? If somebody, you're chasing somebody down for a moving violation, for example, these things are finite. But policing and the organization of the Orange County Sheriff is an infinite organization. We hope that this organization outlasts everybody here and thrives beyond everybody here. So the decisions we make and the way we conduct ourselves have to be considerate of the fact that we want this organization to thrive for the long term. I mean, you play the infinite game for the good of the game.
Right.
Right? Which is, you're in the hospitality industry for the good of the hospitality industry and for the good of all business. And the best companies, the ones we love and admire, right? They share. You know, it's the ones who are protective, you know, of what because they think it's a competitive advantage. And what they fail to recognize is implementation is the competitive advantage, not the idea itself. Execution is the competitive advantage. Yeah. But the ability to share the things you believe in and the things you have figured out for the good of business. Because we don't just believe your employees should be treated well, we believe all employees should be treated well. You know? And if you figured things out, so I'll tell you a story. So Bob Chapman is the CEO of a company called Barry Wehmiller. It's a company I've written and spoken about quite a lot, especially in my book, Leaders Eat Last.
Great guy.
And you had the opportunity to meet Bob. Bob is one of those unique, remarkable leaders. And the way I met Bob is he'd read Start With Why, and he sent me a letter and saying, I'm building the kind of company that you've written about. And I said, I want to meet you. And so we had lunch in Los Angeles, this famous lunch where we were scheduled for an hour, and we both cleared our schedules and spent the next 3 hours together because we loved each other. And I didn't believe him. I said, you know, I talk about an ideal. It's not realistic. It's a striving. He says, no, I have it. And I said, well, I want to see it to believe it. So he picked me up in his plane from New York, and we spent 3 days flying around the country to all these different factories. And it's a manufacturing company, right? This is blue collar, some union, some non-union manufacturing, right? And what I saw absolutely astonished me. It blew me away. I've never seen anything like it. And he didn't prepare anything. He let me roam the factory floor without I could talk to anybody, I could ask anybody any question I wanted. There was no window dressing, and I was absolutely blown away. And I'll just tell you one quick story that really exemplifies, and this one's, I haven't written or spoken about this one, so this one I haven't talked about this one. So they have a machine that was getting old. You know, this is a factory, big machine.
Yeah.
That's getting old and need to be replaced. Traditionally, how large machines are replaced is somebody in procurement fills out a list of requirements and then goes in the market to find a machine that fits a budget, right? That's usually how it's done. That's not how they did it. They went to the factory floor to the two guys who work on that machine, one who's pretty young, in his early 20s, one who's got more experience. Neither of them have college educations. I think one had a GED. And they said to them, you need to replace your machine. You have a budget of $750,000. Go. And these two guys travel around the country looking at
and never came back.
Exactly. They now live in Tahiti. They gave him a budget, not the money.
That was smart.
They flew around the country. They looked at new and used machines, and the people selling the machines said they'd never seen anything like it. They'd never had anybody show up in overalls climbing in the machine. Usually, it's a guy in a suit showing up with a clipboard.
Right.
You know, they ended up spending $650,000. So they were really excited that they saved the company money, and that's their machine, right? That I can guarantee that machine will never break down, right? And the trust, and it makes perfect sense. But this is what one of the things that Bob says. You know, Bob says is, we trust people who have college educations who work in a back office, and we don't trust people who don't have college educations. What about their education makes them trustworthy or untrustworthy? He says, I know some pretty dishonest MBAs, you know? And that's one of the things that Bob did. But the point was, I went on this wonderful tour with Bob, and then we finally went back to their corporate headquarters in St. Louis, and the team that had sort of built this culture was sitting around a table, and they were all looking at me like this, going, isn't this amazing? Like, we built what you wrote about. And I sat there and I said, I think you're the most selfish organization I've ever met in my entire life. And they all were
sort of stunned that I would say that. I said, look, I think it's amazing what you've built. I think it's absolutely incredible. But how selfish of you that you only offer this kind of thing that you've built for 6,000 people. What about the millions of people who hate their jobs, who don't want to go to work every day? What are you doing for them? And it was from that conversation that Bob opened the doors. They now offer training. They now offer tours. Like Bob he wrote a book about it. He's now on the speaking circuit.
Yeah.
He's out there. He's now a public figure. And he's promoting this new way of leading and this new way of thinking. Leader means other people follow what you do. And if your brand stands for something that people want to copy, and you're leading the way, then clearly you are competing against yourself and not them. But let them compete against you. And I think that the Four Seasons is one of those brands. And I can't think of anyone in the hospitality who has ever done that, who's ever reached outside of their own industry, that others want to be more like them.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome.
For 10 more amazing rules from Gary Vee, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
You are capable of firing your employees. You are capable of breaking up in your relationship. You are capable of moving to another town, another country. You are capable of selling your home. You